This is it.
Welcome back to the Restoration Soul Care Podcast. Today we are in a little bit of a different setting.
We're on the porch.
We're on the porch. Why, you ask?
Studio's closed.
Well, I was going to make up some excuse about it's nice outside today finally.
Well, yes. It was a good excuse to come outside.
Yeah.
We actually need at least, 10, 15 minutes of sunshine to improve our mental health. So we're practicing it by example.
And also, when I sent an email to reserve the studio, have you ever done this thing in Apple Mail where you reply to an email and then you close your app and don't think twice about it, and then you go back later and you're like, I replied to myself?
Oh, I've done that many times.
Yeah, so that happened. So studio's locked, can't get in. Here we are. But that's okay.
It was a gift.
It's a gift.
In disguise.
Yeah.
We're coming to you from Louisville, depending on where you're watching, listening. And we finally just got a break in our massive wave of heat. And we love a little bit cooler of temperature. So yeah, this is good.
It feels great out.
Feels awesome.
Now, so this is wonderful. One thing I do want to mention, a change that's happening. We are dropping these podcasts now on Tuesdays instead of Fridays, because apparently nobody listens to podcasts on Fridays going into the weekend. So
our fault.
It's our fault. My fault. I didn't know what I was doing. Still don't.
So, on your way to work, commute, during your midday activities,
going to the gym,
lunch break, all the above.
Yeah.
You can catch the Restoration Soul Care podcast and recommend it to others too who may benefit from it. Today, we are talking about 4 key principles that are instrumental for breaking free from a porn addiction or a sexual struggle. And all 4 of these are biblical principles, but they're actually, I would say, even just self-apparent principles in life too, that we found are also backed up in the clinical world, the psychological world. And we want to share them with you, so it could be helpful. We'll start here, Michael. As former pastors, as Christians, we understand that human beings, every single one of us, are born broken. Not very good news.
Are we?
Scripture describes that we as human beings have a propensity towards what's called sin, towards going against God's design from birth. And when we apply that towards, a struggle with sexual addiction, porn addiction, that basically means, apart from God's help, I have a tendency to lean towards struggle and not away from it.
Right.
Would you explain that differently?
No, I think that's very well put. It's sort of what we're sort of getting at is like this common human condition that we all experience, the brokenness of just being alive in a world where sin is a reality.
Yeah.
Post, Genesis chapter 3, like we've talked about in Genesis. But yeah, the idea is that we're broken, we do have sin, and we are in perpetual need of Christ. Yeah.
I think it's apparent enough. All we have to do is watch the evening news to know humanity is generally struggling, which is, again, we say this with great compassion, and that human beings usually bend towards more disorder and more brokenness in terms of relationship, and even what we experience physically and mentally and emotionally, things aren't necessarily getting better. So I'm not trying to make an apologetic here. We're trying to lead into the first principle, and actually all 4 of these, by the way, are found in the narrative of Paul's letter to the church in Ephesus, what we call Ephesians. And the first principle, they all start with R.
Because of course they do.
Yes, we have to as former pastors.
Let's be honest, we choose to.
We choose to.
We don't have to.
It's a memory tactic. Let's just be honest. Redeemed principle.
Redeemed.
If you have time, we will not do it here on this episode, but Ephesians 1 and 2 really clearly and beautifully lays out this picture of who we are apart from God's work and grace in Jesus. But also, my favorite part is the pinnacle of Ephesians 2 that declares triumphantly that we can be saved by grace. Not a result of what we can bring to the table, not by works, but that I think of Ephesians 2 verse 10, we can be this masterpiece of God's grace where He, not because we deserve it, but purely because of His own goodness and His desire for us, He pays for our sin completely on the cross. And then actually what Scripture describes is He gives us a new heart, a new desire, and an ability to actually interact with Him relationally. Yeah. Ephesians 2, I think, even says we're spiritually dead apart from God initiating that work inside of us. So we start there to say, if anything needs to happen first, it's on a deep level of a heart change
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
Why would you say that's actually the starting place for someone who's saying, man, I'm struggling with porn. I just want to get it out of my life. Why do I need to think about a relationship with God or where I'm at with God?
Yeah, this is the difference between just modifying a behavior, which, let's be honest, like, if you did nothing else for the next 2 weeks and you said, I'm not going to look at porn, you could probably pull that off.
Probably.
But
Maybe.
the idea that we're talking about, big picture, is this idea of transformation. And transformation only happens in the life of Christ.
Yes.
Which is why when we come to this work, we say, you know, I think I used this language a couple episodes ago, but it's not, like you said, if you want to just rip off 2 weeks of sobriety, you can probably do that. But what we're doing is really just delaying relapse.
Yeah.
And that's not healing. That's not transformation. That's just, you know, punting.
Yes.
And many people punt for years and years. I did that, thinking that I was doing the deeper work by just telling myself, well, this was the last time. God, I promise never again. But there was no real heart change in it. And frankly, I didn't know how at the time. But two, really understanding like what Christ wants for us in our relationship with Him is not just like surface level stuff.
Yeah.
Because that, if it was just about changing your behavior, that would mean that He only cares about you this much. It's about, well, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
Right. Rather than what His heart truly is, which is for all of us.
Yeah.
Like even the broken, difficult, complicated parts that we sometimes don't want to face. But
Yeah.
Christ is after our transformation, not just our, you know, behavior management.
Yeah. I think with that quote I shared with you a while ago, I think it was from Dr. Ted Roberts, but he said in general, 2 to 5 year process, miracle happening every day. And what I think about is we need that initial miracle, so to speak, of our heart having new desires, a new perspective, and a new dependence on God and His grace in order to step into that transformation process. Or else, like you just said, it's just, goodness, scrambling to try to find new behavior management tactics, which, man, are so taxing and so frustrating to try to keep up with. So yeah, redeemed principle, that's what we'd say first, covered in Ephesians 1 and 2. And man, I think the most beautiful part of the redeemed principle is we need to have a new identity from God.
Yeah.
We've talked about this, that we're wounded. A lot of our wounds that we try to medicate in porn are based on this shame identity that we have. And Ephesians 1 is Paul saying, for those of you who have put your trust in Jesus, you're still in that transformation process. But here's what's true of you. Like, you've been forgiven. You are a child of God. You have the Spirit of God inside of you. You have a great purpose in front of you. It's just this declaration of what is true, regardless of where you're at in the transformation journey.
Yeah.
And we need that anchored identity in order to actually take steps forward to say, you know what? Even on my worst week, even when I relapsed a bunch of times, I still have this anchored identity because of Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty for me, is that new identity, not rooted in my track record or what I necessarily deserve, but an identity rooted in the work of Jesus.
Yeah.
Let's move to the second one.
Okay.
And actually, the second, third, and fourth ones are all practical stuff, which I know we love to talk about practical action. As you move and shift in the letter of Ephesians, Paul, he does this in Romans too. He talks about what's true and what's good in theology, or not good in theology, what's just truth, whether we receive it, which we say is the good news of the gospel. But as he goes to halfway through chapter 3 through the end of the letter, it's all practical.
Yeah.
And one of the things he moves towards is the reality of sexual sin. There's this battle going on. But what he says is interesting in Ephesians 4, and I believe this is I'm looking at our own notes, in verses 20 and following, is he says, as we go through this transformation process, we're still going to have sin in and around us. Like that's this whole idea of becoming more like Jesus. It's a lifelong process. But he said the way that we do it, even when we feel those desires still in us, towards sin or our unique temptations or our unique weaknesses, what we need to do is not just try to avoid that's there. Like, oh, no, I don't struggle anymore. I'm a Christian now, and I shouldn't have those. Maybe I'm not a Christian, actually, if I have them. That's not true. Yeah. Paul says if you do have them, you can still be a believer.
Yeah.
But the process is actually what we call a replacement principle. And in Paul's words, he says, put off like an old way of living and learn to put on a new way that is now provided for you in Jesus.
Yeah.
What does that look like practically?
Yeah.
Maybe 2,000 years after Paul wrote the letter to Ephesians.
Yeah, well, it's evidence of that transformation, which is why these go in the specific order. And what was coming to mind is this distinction I like to make with people of perfection versus participation.
Yeah, that's it.
And you get to choose one of those roles in your life with Christ, and Jesus gets the other, so choose wisely. And it's sort of a trick question because you can't do one of them. You can't literally be perfect in the sense I think that Jesus is. So if Christ's role in your relationship with him is perfection, well, what's the other one? That's the one you get. That's participation.
Yeah.
And it's distinctly not the other thing. Participating means showing up, paying attention, engaging, and being present and attuned into what God is doing in your life in this moment.
Yeah.
Whether that's today with you, sitting here talking, whether it's later when I see my kids and my wife, I'm here present in this moment with what God has for me, and I'm not trying to stress out and work my tail off to nail every single thing perfectly. Am I going to show up perfect as a father later? Probably not. Am I going to show up perfect as a husband later? Probably not.
No.
But if I stay present to what God has in front of me, it will keep me focused and keeps me human. It keeps me living in reality, which is that I am limited.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be a perfect husband all the time. I can't be a perfect father all the time.
Yeah.
But I can be a present father.
Yeah.
I can be a present husband. So that was a roundabout way, I think, of answering the question you asked, which is what does that look like 2,000 years later? Yeah, am I making sense?
Yeah, you are. You're also reminding me, go see last week's episode, that the reason why porn or other sexual struggles are so ingrained in us is because they're serving a very specific purpose. They're trying to meet a need that God has created for us. And so when I think about this put off, put on principle, it's actually getting at that. It's saying it's good to get your needs met. It's good to want to find things that are bringing you life, that help you deal with pain or shame or, whatever that need is or that wound is that porn seems to be trying to solve. That's a good thing to try to address it.
Right.
But when Paul says put on, he's not just saying, hey, just try a new tactic. He's actually saying, look for and discover the things that actually meet your needs.
Yeah.
Like he, for instance, he uses in the passage, like if you were prone to stealing, actually put that off, sure. Like we want to avoid that. But if you're stealing because you're in a state of I need, or like I need some, I need a sense that I can have security in my life, or I can have a sense of good, and I look to things to give me some good in my life.
Yeah.
Like I just need it. And if I can't afford it, I'm just going to take it. But he actually said the great answer that you can put on is generosity, where you can experience the blessing and the goodness of being able to not have a tangible item give you goodness in your life, but have a relational capital bring goodness in your life. Does that kind of make sense too?
100%.
So when we say like, hey, put off pornography, masturbation, objectifying relationships, actually the good news is we get to put on real intimacy, right? Which is sometimes slower and not as, it doesn't spike your dopamine and your serotonin right away, but it's much more, we've used this word a lot, satiating. It's much more sustaining. And that's what we're being called to put on, is the good stuff. Yeah, I could go there. I have another analogy, but we'll save it for a different time.
Okay.
We'll keep going. Third principle, just for the sake of time, just make sure we got time for all this, is what we call the RESOLUTE principle. And Paul acknowledges in the city of Ephesus, I believe in chapter 5, that, goodness, at that time, here's how people sexually acted out. They would go to work, they'd go to the marketplace, but in Ephesus, there was actually this temple where the way you worshipped this god is by sleeping with temple prostitutes. It was a way of adorning this god and hoping that this, I believe it was Diana, I could be off here, but that she would, or this goddess would give you fertility and life. But But what would happen is people would become Christians, but man, they may not believe in the goddess anymore, the Greek goddess anymore, but man, it just felt really good to like, wow, on the way home, I could stop by the shrine, the temple. And Paul's like, hey, you need to be resolute. You need to be absolute in your way that you address the sin. So it may mean, I'm adding to the letter here, it may mean you're going to take a different way home on your way home from the marketplace or on the way home from work. It could mean you need to confess some relationships or some habits you're still holding on to, and you need to cut that off completely. So Paul's words is, I love this translation, I believe this is New Living Translation. He says, not even a hint of sexual immorality should be among you. The word is porneia, which we've talked about in previous episodes. So not even a little bit. It's resolute. Man, why is that important? Why can't we have a staggered way of working with this sin and just be like, give me a little bit. I'll wean myself off. Or, yeah, I guess maybe let me flip it that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, even a little bit is still poison.
Sure.
It's like, I just drank a little bit of arsenic today.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not kill you, but like, it ain't good for you.
Yeah.
Or what's the, sorry, maybe arsenic's not right, because I think like there's trace amounts of that in apple juice, so you're probably,
Apple seeds, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. What's the thing that, cyanide? Just a little bit of cyanide for you today. He's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, feels nice.
Yeah.
Okay, but at what cost? You know?
Right.
So,
and that's God's heart for us to say,
right.
I don't even want a little bit. By the way, and I want to say this as I ask you the question, our expectation, and I want to be as bold as say God's expectation, is not that in a second you're going to be over this sin.
Right.
We're talking about your heart's attitude towards it.
Right.
We even tell guys as we're coaching them through recovery, like, I think you've mentioned this, you might be 20, 25 relapses still from seeing significant growth and healing in this area. Like, we kind of expect that. It sucks, but it's like we expect it. There's not this high pressure, you're either in or you're out.
Yeah.
That's not what resolute means. It means the posture of our heart is to say, I want to be so dedicated to the goodness that God has called me to, I don't even want to mess around with it a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what we're getting at.
Yep. We got to stay with it.
Man, I thought about this early on when I was in recovery. Jesus' words in the Sermon on the Mount. Like, if your hand causes you to sin, if your eye causes you to sin, cut it off or pluck it out.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. Hey, maybe if you're like me, maybe this is you. How many of you are like, you really contemplating cutting your hand off?
Yeah.
Because it's like that bad and that overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. Reason I bring it up, I misunderstood that to say, again, what I just said. You're either in or you're out, and if you're still struggling with it, you're going to hell. I don't think at all that's what Jesus is getting at there, precisely because of the way he ministers to people throughout his life. And plus, the practical thing is you could cut your hand off. You still lust.
Right.
You could pluck your eyes out. You still got your thoughts. That doesn't solve it. But let me put this in very practical lingo. Here's where I see guys struggle with this is we're coaching them. They're like, man, I got an iPhone. I got Instagram. I have Safari. And I keep acting out through those things. Like, yeah, then I end up on that Instagram reel, and that leads me to this and X, Y, Z, and I relapsed again. I'm sorry. Or, I put a filter on my Safari, but like, I found some ways around it, and I keep going back. The resolute principle says is, maybe would I be willing to do life without internet browsing, without social media for a short season, maybe for a long season, in order to set the table for, again, the goodness and the beautiful things that God wants to bring into my life. And man, that's hard.
It is hard, but necessary.
Yeah.
This is, I feel like a lot of what I have to say I'm ripping from other podcasts. That's
right.
But a guy I heard in another podcast say, I will do what is required, and I will do what is necessary.
Yeah.
And if we are resolving to dedicate ourselves to this work of ditching a pornography addiction, it's, I will commit to do what is necessary.
Yeah.
Not what is easy, because it's not easy. But if we commit to do what is necessary, we commit to do the hard thing, and I know we'll get into this probably in a minute, but we commit to do this in relationship, in community with other men, that's where the healing actually takes place.
Yes,
it's
that's right.
It's not totally on your own strength. It's not in isolation. It's not by yourself.
Yeah.
Because, again, drilling out big picture again, because God didn't call us to a life of isolation. He called us to a community that's the church. He called us to a people group, and we have to lean on that, and we have to show up there, and we have to take up space there on purpose.
Yeah. Early on in my recovery journey, I did this exercise called a damage inventory, and basically what it did is open my eyes to what is a little bit of cyanide doing in my life. Like, what is the cost of me continuing in this behavior? And man, I could list a lot of the things, but I know God actually prepared my heart to see them with a whole new weight. I had just gone through a divorce. I was only seeing my kids half the time. And I'm like, this is it. It only goes down more from here.
Yeah.
And I think that's some of the incentive too of saying, I want to be resolute, like you said, because I'm not okay with this even having an ounce of weight in my life anymore.
Yeah.
Do you ever watch that movie, 27 Hours? It's based on a true story of a guy who got his hand caught in this, I don't know what canyon it was, somewhere out west. He lives up the principle we're talking about. He basically had to come to a decision to say, I could keep trying to maneuver here, but if I want to live, I'm going to have to lose my hand. And yeah, spoiler alert, he ends up cutting it off. But then that is his entry path to rescue, because he would have died in that crevice.
Yep.
Because he was so attached there. Just another, man, a really good visual for what is actually going on. There's something gripping our soul to, again, just a little bit is enough to grip our soul, and we have to cut it off.
Yeah.
All right, last one. We're moving. And that is one of my favorite chapters in Scripture, besides Romans 8.
Okay.
Is Ephesians 6, and it's most famous for the armor of God. Did you ever grow up in Sunday school when you had to put the little knight together with the helmet of salvation? And
We used construction paper, and we cut it out and decorated it.
my parents were Sunday school teachers, and because we were in a small church, low budget, they still had felt boards. Do you remember this? It's like the cloth, and you could just stick it. Man, I missed that.
Didn't you send me something with a felt board not too long ago?
I hope I did.
Well, we don't have to get into
Yeah,
that. I
anyways.
remember what it was now.
We need to use felt boards in our workshops. Mental note to our future assistant.
Felt board.
The last principle is called the RELIANT principle. And what Paul talks about, yes, with the armor of God, but actually in the full chapter of chapter 6, is you were made for, okay, big surprise here, a regular dependent relationship with God. He says, when you've done all, stand in the power and the grace God has provided for you. And that stand word is actually a continual process. In
Yes.
other words, every day I make a decision. I can stand in what God has provided for me, or I can go do my own thing. And man, that's a convicting thing. But not only is there that dependence on God, Paul also beautifully talks about, even through one of the aspects of the armor of God, is we're to put on this new community that we were created for. I love how you said multiple times, plan A for God's people was the church.
Yep.
Plan A wasn't, you could be a hero, you can figure this out, Lone Ranger. Plan A was actually, yeah, you're dependent on other people, which we see in Genesis 2. It's not good for man to be alone.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Just the idea of getting stuck in this place where we, talking about the idea of grace.
Okay.
That we get to this place where we feel so much shame that we don't believe that we can live in this tension of I can be profoundly broken and struggle with sin and also be loved by God at the same time.
Wow, yeah.
And we read things like, well, God's grace is for you. And then we go, well, I'm not really deserving of that. When I clean myself up and I can get 2 weeks of sobriety, then maybe I can take on a little more of God's grace and then make those big strides that I'm looking for. Rather than, one of my favorite verses is that we don't, because of the gospel, like we don't live, God hasn't given us a spirit of fear,
Yeah.
Meaning, in Christ, we don't live from this place of fear where it's like, I'm in sin. I hope God doesn't punish me.
Yeah.
That's fear. And it can be a powerful motivator, but it's a misaligned motivator. Instead, we live from a place of, if we're in Christ, the first thing we get is God's grace.
Yep.
And so to acknowledge, and again, to stay present and participate, not perfect. Perfection says I have to live out of fear. I have to stress about this. If I don't get it right, God's going to be done with me. Everything in my life is going to crumble and fall apart. Rather than if we live from a place of participation in God's grace, it says, yeah, you might not get it right tomorrow. You might not get it right today. But as long as you're staying in the fight, you're showing up and participating with what God has for you today in your battle with pornography, there's grace for you.
Yeah.
And there's infinite grace for you. And that John Mark McMillan song, How He Loves Us, I love the imagery in that. If His grace is an ocean, we're sinking.
Yeah.
Like it's immeasurable. And God's got more of that than you could ever use up.
Yeah.
Right? Not like Paul says, not that we abuse God's grace, that we should sin all the more on purpose.
Yeah.
But the difference is if I'm staying in the work, I'm participating, and if I sin, there's grace for that, right? Because that gives you the courage to move forward, to keep trying and keep working, and not worrying about the results, because that's up to God. The perfection is up to God.
I'm so glad we're wrapping up with that. I'm getting the mental picture in my mind. If you had the 4 principles as like books of things that you could press into, being redeemed, being resolute, being all of it. I see the first and the last, so the redeemed principle and the reliant principle, almost as bookends. They couch the 2 very practical ones of putting off and putting on, and also having this attitude, I'm going to be resolute. The redemption of God and being reliant, as you just said, is completely dependent on Him.
Right.
Not me.
Right.
I get to participate in it. I get to receive it as a gift. But really, God's done the work.
Right.
And man, if we could encourage guys with that, being redeemed by Jesus and experiencing what we call communion with God, His presence every day, that's simply just receiving. And yes, when we talk about reliant, being even reliant in the church, I don't know, I'll speak for myself. I can look at relationship as something I need to do. Like I get it, especially even like therapeutically, I need relationship in my life. But when I approach it that way, it never goes well. Right. I got to do relationship. I guess I'll spend time with somebody today. But when it's an overflow of, man, I've been loved by, I am anchored in a God who loves me and who has renewed me and has good plans for me today, my whole perspective on relationships with other people just completely shift. It also makes me show up in a less like self-consumed type of way too. Like I need you to fulfill my needs,
right? But
more like, man, I'd really love to experience God's presence with you, because I know it's best experienced in community and not in isolation.
Yeah.
Any final words as we kind of wrap up?
Yeah. The verse you shared earlier, if we are His masterpiece, the painting doesn't yank the paintbrush out of the painter and says, I'll fill in these gaps. I got this covered. Because it can't.
Yeah.
Totally dependent upon the artist and the creator for the work.
I love that picture. Man, thanks for joining us on the porch today.
Yeah. I like this. I don't mind this. I'm happy to do this more if the weather stays cool.
Yeah. We just need to bring out all the expensive cameras out here.
Yeah. And then maybe we'll see if we can get Rodney or Jared to sit down on purpose with us.
Stay tuned for future episodes with guests. I was actually just thinking / praying about that this morning. Well, hey, as we always say, don't do this alone. Please reach out to us. We really would love to hear from you of what's helpful for you, what you would like to hear more of. And if you have questions, we're still hoping to do a episode purely of Q&A.
Yeah. We've gotten a few questions, but we want more.
We're going to stack them.
Yeah. So if you want our help, if you want to talk, drop us a line. You can hit us up on Instagram at Mike Kamber, at Nick W. Buda, or on the website rscky.com. And,
that was perfect harmony.
That was beautiful. So yeah, let us know how we can be helpful. If you found this helpful and you know somebody else that's struggling with this or that could use this encouragement, please send this to them. Whatever platform you're watching this on, download it, share it, subscribe, like it, whatever that looks like, so that we can keep growing and that we can keep doing this work and helping more and more people. Yeah. Until
Okay.
next time.
See you. Bye.